Cinco de Mayo is just around the corner, and if you're burned out on tacos, burritos, and quesadilla, then give these tamales a try. They are a filling and satisfying bite of Latin food. Alright, we will kick things off with some pork shoulder steaks here, or you could just use a Boston butt. Want about 2 pounds or so of meat here. We'll put this into a slow cooker. You could also do it in a pressure cooker or Instant Pot. We'll add in 1 white or yellow onion that I've cut into quarters and just kind of break it up into chunks. Follow that with 3 or 4 bay leaves, some garlic powder, some ground oregano, some ground cumin, and a healthy sprinkle of some chili powder. Mexican style chili powder would be just great here as well. We'll season that with salt and pepper, and guys, as always, the instructions and recommended amounts will be down below in the description, so no need to take notes. We'll cover that with a couple of cups of water and pop it into our slow cooker. We're going to let this go for about 6 to 8 hours on low heat. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and fish out the large chunks of onions. Also want to look for any chunks of bay leaf that are in there. Nobody wants to bite down on that. And then if you use sliced butt or shoulder steaks like this, they're going to be very, very tender and basically just broken apart, but that's fine. Just fish out those juicy chunks of meat. If you're using a full-size shoulder here, you'll want to go ahead and shred that. And definitely do not get rid of that liquor or liquid. We're going to use that coming up here soon. For our chili sauce, we're going to add 4 California chilies, which have been stemmed and de-seeded, and a couple cloves of garlic to a skillet, along with a couple cups of chicken stock, and a nice heavy ladle of that pork cooking liquid, because it's got a lot of flavor and fat in there. We're going to simmer this for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's reduced slightly and those chilies have softened, at which point we will add the liquid and chilies to a bowl, followed by 3 to 4 chipotles and adobo, some more chili powder, some onion powder or minced onion, some ground cumin, and ground oregano. Again, a lot of the same flavors in the sauce here as we used in the meat. And then just blend that very thoroughly until it is a nice, smooth liquid. We need to tighten that or thicken that up just a little bit, so we're going to add a tablespoon of olive oil followed by a tablespoon of flour to a skillet over medium heat to make a roux. Once that flour is smelling nice and nutty and turning a light golden brown, we'll add in the chili liquid mixture, turn the heat down to low, and just simmer this for 10 to 15 minutes until it tightens up and some of that excess liquid evaporates. Once it reaches that texture and consistency, we can go ahead and turn the heat off. And now we will add our chili sauce to our shredded pork. And you'll just want to thoroughly mix that all together. Make sure that pork is nice and shredded. Make sure there's no bones or large hunks of fat in there. Now, this filling is phenomenal in tacos, burritos, quesadillas, and the like. And I've made it several times before with excellent outcomes. But I have to be honest, this was my first time actually making tamales with Masa. So a little bit of an experiment, but it turned out great. I've got about 1 1/3 cups of lard in a stand mixer, or you could do this in a bowl. Add a couple tablespoons of broth, followed by some seasonings, get a little bit of air incorporated into that lard, at which point we'll add in about 4 cups of masa, and a couple cups of stock. I'm using a mushroom stock here because that's what I had on hand, but chicken stock or beef stock, veggie stock, anything would be just fine. You want to bring this masa together into a shaggy dough. It should basically be the consistency of wet sand, something like that. It's not going to fully come together into an actual dough, being that it is cornmeal and not flour, but that is just perfect. The last ingredient or needed component here will be some corn husks, which I've soaked in warm water for about 20 minutes, so they are not too brittle. They're nice and pliable. We'll just put down some of our masa mixture. You want to leave some space at the top of the corn husk as well as on the sides, because we're going to roll this up. Need a little bit of room so stuff is not poking out the top or the sides. Once you've got about a 1/4 inch thick layer of your masa. We'll add in a couple spoonfuls of that pork filling. And at this point, we're just going to roll it up, trying to seal up those edges. And then fold the bottom up to seal the bottom. And you can use a piece of corn husk or some twine to fold that up and keep the bottom from unfurling. We're going to cook these over a steamer plate in a large Dutch oven. As you can see, we've got all of our tamales laid in there. This should make about 20 or so. Want to keep them up off the bottom of that pot so they do not burn. We'll add in just a little bit of water, maybe a cup to a cup and a half. Bring that up to a simmer so we've got some nice steam action going, and then just cover it as best you can. And we're going to cook these for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on exactly how thick that layer of masa in your tamales is. They should release relatively cleanly from that corn husk. And then your service options here are relatively varied. You could go from mild to wild. Pico de gallo and hot sauce is my order today, but some sour cream, some guacamole, avocado slices, cilantro and onions, really just anything that you'd want to make this your own. I would recommend giving it a try. You've got a nice soft and moist filling with that masa, a deeply succulent and spicy filling with that pork and chili mixture. I love the way the pico is nice and cool and crunchy in contrast with those other textures and flavors, but again, some sour cream, guacamole would be great with this as well. Definitely give this a try, and if you don't want to go to all the trouble of making that pulled pork and chili filling, you could just use some refried beans and cheese, but I highly recommend giving it a try. These tamales were awesome, and they will be great for Cinco de Mayo, so give them a try. Now it's your turn to go make something delicious.